The sky was splitting open in blood-red streaks. Clay, covered in dust and guts, stared at the man kneeling before him. Allison's eyes didn't blink. They didn't even seem human anymore. Between his filthy teeth, something thick and warm oozed. In the background, only the sound of bones crunching under leather boots. How did he end up here? Before we uncover what dragged Clay Allison into this abyss, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're watching from. It keeps this fire burning. Now, brace your soul. The legend's just getting started. The desert swallows the light. And in the heart of this parched land, among rotten saloons and forgotten corpses, a rumor takes root. Clay Allison came back from Dodge City different. He rode in on a horse that limped as if it, too, had seen hell. Hat crumpled, face hidden under thick shadow, and a fresh scar slicing across his forehead's leathered skin. They say he took a pistol whip from a drunken sheriff during a fight over nothing. And when he woke, something inside him didn't wake with him. Or maybe it woke too much. The first to notice was Mary Bell, the brothel madam. Clay walked in silent, but his eyes, they scanned the crowd like they were hunting something beneath the skin. He refused whiskey, refused women, sat in a corner, and asked for a slab of meat, raw. The next day, the butcher vanished. What was left of him was found behind the barn, draped in a sheet. Nobody dared lift it. The stench told the story. And what was missing from the body confirmed it. Clay didn't run. He stayed, as if he wanted them to see. And they did. At the funeral, some townsfolk gathered behind the church. They wanted him gone, but Clay caught their whispers and smiled, not a defiant smile, a hungry one. That night, 3 men disappeared. One was found at dawn, hung by the skin of his face from a withered tree, carved into his chest with a knife. Hunters become prey. Since then, he rides with no clear destination, as if his head throbs to the beat of an ancient drum. Every full moon, his gaze shifts, no longer a man's, but a beast's. And now, they say Clay's heading back to Tombstone, the town where it all began, where an old name echoes through the alleys. McCready, a name that stirs memories. And thirst for blood. The trail to Tombstone was dry as a condemned man's mouth. Clay rode without haste, each step of his mount dragging time behind it. The sun no longer burned his skin. He burned from within. Since the head wound, something had ignited, a fire no water or prayer could douse. McCready, the name pulsed in his mind like an open wound, more than a memory, a debt, and Clay didn't leave debts unpaid. McCready, a former Union lieutenant, now owned half the town. A worm who thrived when wars ended, buying land with others' blood and building power on fear. Clay met him years ago, back when he was just a man trying to be forgotten. McCready hired him for dirty work. Drive a family of homesteaders off water-rich land. Clay did the job, but when he came to collect, he got led instead. The bullet didn't kill him. The hunger was born that night. Since then, Clay tracked McCready like a coyote sniffing carrion. But the bastard slipped through shadows, surrounded by hired guns and shields. Now, with Tombstone in his sights, Clay knew this was the last stop before settling the score. When he arrived, no one dared meet his gaze. Drunks fell silent. Whores drew their curtains. Dogs tucked their tails. Clay dismounted, slow steps, spurs singing like a death knell. He headed to the Dust Devil Saloon, the only place where voices still carried. Pushed the door open. The woods creak sounded like a prayer. Inside, voices hushed. At the bar, an old acquaintance, Boone Keller, former Gunslinger partner, now McCready's dog. Clay leaned on the counter, removed his hat slowly, and fixed Boone with a stare that was already digging his grave. "Where is he?" Boone laughed, humorless, tried to seem steady, but his hand shook on the bottle. "You should have died that night, Clay." "I did," Clay replied, unblinking. "What's left is hunger." Before Boone could draw, Clay was behind him. A crack, a scream, and the dull thud of flesh hitting the floor. Clay left the saloon, chewing something. The town finally understood. He didn't want gold or redemption. He wanted McCready. and he wouldn't stop until he tasted the last memory. The name McCready carried weight. Not just a man. An empire on legs, clean-shaven, reeking of Cuban cigars. Since hanging up his uniform, he owned mines, wells, and the law in Tombstone. No judge, sheriff, or preacher stood taller than his dollars. But he knew Clay was coming. Knew at the night boom became silence in the Dust Devil Saloon. The messenger didn't even knock. The smell of blood spoke first. McCready shut the curtains of his hilltop mansion, called for men, not ranch hands, predators. He hired what was left of the old Apache hunters, the border wolves, men who'd killed with bare hands and drank from skulls, men who laughed at corpses. Their leader was Luther Crow, half Comanche, half legend, carried a Winchester on his back and scars on his face, like the devil himself had tried to erase him. He didn't talk much, but when he did, his words cut sharper than a razor. McCready gathered them in the dining hall, among candles and stuffed heads. "He's just a man," one of the hired guns said. Luther stared into the void. Then, without moving his hand from a rifle, answered, "We've hunted men. What's coming is something else." The plan was simple. Lure Clay to ground McCready knew, a dry canyon where echoes muddled direction and the earth swallowed tracks. Set ambushes, force Clay to burn through ammo, tire his horse, break his rhythm. But Clay didn't take the bait. He turned the game. That dawn, one of the border wolves vanished. They found his boot. Inside, an ear. Atop the hill, a howl tore through the night. Long, deep, almost human. McCready tasted fear for the first time. Dry, bitter, metallic. Clay wouldn't face the pack head-on. He'd unravel it one by one, from the inside out. Like rot, Luther, though, was crafting the final trap. He knew the ghosts of the plains, knew how to track monsters, and he was determined to prove that even legends bleed. The sky collapsed in rust-colored clouds. The earth lay still, as if waiting for the noise to come. Hollow Stone Canyon, dry, narrow, silent, was the chosen ground, a throat carved in hell's floor. Clay arrived at dawn, alone, unhurried, like a man who knows death awaits and still brings an appetite. In the shadows, the border wolves took position, hidden in crevices behind rocks, fingers itching on triggers. McCready watched from a distance, on a rise, flanked by two bodyguards and a barrel of fear leaking through his eyes. Luther Crow waited in the canyon's heart, hands loose, eyes steady. He knew Clay would come for him, not the traps, not the others. Him, because only a monster recognizes another. Clay dismounted. Boots hit the ground. The silence roared. "Crow," he said, voice scraping. "Allison, you know what I want." He's up top, guarded, armed. "He'll come down," Clay replied, stepping forward. "Or I'll climb with his hide in my teeth." Luther raised a Winchester. Clay drew his revolver. And then the thunder of bullets began. The first shot ricocheted off stone. The second tore through a higher gun shoulder. Clay moved like a living shadow, dodging lead and firing with demonic precision. Each shot was a verdict. Each fall, a chapter scratched from history. The wolves tried to flank. One dropped with shattered jaw. Another turned to dust and bone before he could cock his gun. Clay wasn't a man, he was a storm. Luther and Clay at last stood face to face. Silence, both bloodied, teeth clenched. Clay out of bullets. Luther with a knife. They lunged like beasts in heat. The blade sliced air, bit flesh. Clay didn't scream. Grabbed Luther's shoulders and bit. Yes, bit. Tore off a chunk of skin and spat on the ground. Luther staggered back, stunned, enraged. Tried another swing. But Clay, wounded, delirious, moved with the fury of the starved. The knife fell, blood sprayed. And Luther, the hunter, became the feast. Atop the hill, McCready trembled. Saw it all. Saw it too much. Clay raised his bloodied head. His eyes sought the ridge. And then he roared, a primal sound. The cry of someone who no longer fights for justice or revenge, but for satisfaction. McCready ran, but hunger runs faster. McCready's mansion burned with candles gold in fear. Mirrors were covered, windows bolted. The old man sat in a velvet chair, like a king awaiting the guillotine. 2 guns lay on the table, but his hands shook too much to trust them. Outside, only the sound of spurs. Rhythmic, soft, relentless. Clay walked through the front door. Didn't kick it, didn't shout, just entered, like death enters a hospital room. Silent, inevitable, ravenous. McCready raised a gun, fired twice. The first missed. The second hit Clay's chest. But he didn't stop, just felt the impact, like a slap from the wind. He approached slowly, eyes of a beast, blood dripping from his mouth, like aged wine. "You should be dead," McCready whispered. "I am." The table flipped. Clay lunged, and there, amid expensive books and family portraits, McCready's empire ended with muffled screams and the wet sound of justice done by hand. When the sun rose, the townsfolk came, found the door open, the house empty, and in the armchair nothing, just a hat and blood soaking the floor. No sign of Clay, no sign of McCready. Some say Clay vanished into the desert. Others swear he still walks, leaving red footprints on the dusty roads of the West. But one thing's certain: when the moon is full and the wind blows from the south, some hear the jangle of spurs and the sound of teeth chewing. If you made it this far, partner, you've caught the scent of this legend. So drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment which dark figure the Old West you want to see brought to life next. Until then, watch your step when you walk alone. Not every gunslinger dies. Some are too hungry to go,